Well, this morning I have the opportunity to end off our series on developing a kingdom culture, and today we're talking about freedom and responsibility. But for real, I want to talk about bearing burdens, and this is often a topic that I bring up in passing conversations, but one that I haven't preached on yet. I want to talk to you about bearing each other's burdens. And wrapping up this series on developing a kingdom culture, it's important that we talk about freedom and responsibility just as we did the other biblical ideas. But even for myself, there's this push and pull between what freedom is and what responsibility is. And so that's why I was carving out my time in my study and decided that really this is talking about what it means to bear each other's burdens. Because we ask ourselves these questions. Questions like, when is it okay to help someone? When is it okay to go and help somebody? When is it okay to say, no, I can't help you? That's just too much on my load. And when is it okay to put boundaries on how much assistance we can give? Because we're called to bear each other's burdens, but sometimes the burden is just too much to bear for yourself. It's someone else's burden. And to explain this, I want to have some fun this morning, okay? You guys want to have some fun with me? I want to call up the kids, grade 6 and under, who want to come and help me explain freedom and responsibility. Does any kid want to come up and help? You guys can come up right over here. I am not scary, I promise. I don't bite. Yeah, come up on stage. We got lots of room. Look at this. Anyone else want to come? Oh, that's it. Okay. That's all right. You guys can keep coming if you want. All right. I know you guys pretty well. Elijah, how strong are you? You don't know? Would you say you're a strong guy? Yeah? Okay, Elijah, I got a big task for you. Do you think you could give me 100 jumping jacks? No? But you said you were strong. Okay, Kezia, do you think you could give me 100 jumping jacks? If you didn't have the shoes on. Okay. Oh, hey girls. Do one of you girls think you could give me 100 jumping jacks? Sure? Okay, do you want to start? I have a chocolate bar if you can do 100. Does that sound good? Well, you've already passed up the opportunity. Okay. Do you want to start giving me 100 jumping jacks, okay? Yeah, just go for it. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't have a watch on, but this is going to take a while. Okay, you know what? Keep going, just keep going. You got to get up to 100. How about this? I'll sweeten the deal. If you guys help her, I got a bunch of little chocolate bars, but you don't have to help her if you don't want to. If you guys help her, like say how many we got? We got 8 of you guys. If you guys do 12 jumping jacks each, I'll give you each a chocolate bar. But you don't have to if you don't want to. Does anyone want to do that? Like, put up your hand if you want to do that. Okay, everyone give me 12 jumping jacks then. Nice. Nice, yeah, get on in here. That's all right, we'll count it. All right. Ken, can I get your help? Do you want to hand them out some chocolate bars? I got other flavors too. We don't just have Kit Kat. We got them all. You guys can each get a chocolate bar from Ken. There's some more behind you on the piano. And then you guys can go sit down. Thank you for helping me. You guys were very brave in helping. And you guys go back to your families, okay? Yeah, give everyone a chocolate bar, even if they didn't help. That's all right. Oh, there's one more. Hey, do you want a Mars bar? Okay. You snuck on in right behind me. Here you go. And you want to go back to your parents? No. It's always fun having kids up here. Hey, Kids Venture, I'm pretty sure Kids Venture starts next week. And so it's going to be good. Oh, you're coming back. Are you going to help me preach? Okay. Well, thank you, kids, for coming on up. I appreciate that. It really helps us talk about what it means for freedom and responsibility. Because I wanted to demonstrate through this exercise what freedom is and what responsibility is. When it comes to freedom and responsibility, we each have a choice, but those are different meanings. You see, none of the kids were forced to do anything, okay? The only person who we said, hey, you have to do 100 jumping jacks was that girl, right? She's the only one who had to do it. And it wasn't until I actually bring out a reward of something else that it invites others in because, hey, I want to take a part of this piece. Because the first piece, when it comes to freedom and responsibility, is we have the freedom of choice. We have the freedom of choice. And that's going to be one of my big points today, is we have freedom of choice. We can say yes or no. And when it comes to terms of salvation, right, Jesus offers us salvation, but we can say yes or no. And when it comes to bearing burdens as well, we can say yes and no. So the first piece, freedom is our choice. But the second piece is responsibility is actually our compassion. When we are responsible in terms of bearing burdens, we are being compassionate. And responsibility is our compassion. And I want to explain both of these more through the scripture, but I want to give them to you right off the bat, where I'm talking about freedom being our choice and responsibility being our compassion. And so I want to invite you, turn to Galatians chapter 6, 1 to 2, and I'm going to start there. The Apostle Paul, he's writing to the Galatians a whole letter about what to do, and this piece is very interesting as he invites them into assisting in bearing burdens. And for a lot of this, he's going to talk about different kind of sins. How do we help people navigate through their sin patterns? But in the same breath, I also want to say, Paul is also talking about how do we navigate with people through the hardships of life, through the storms of life, the difficult parts. And so this is what Paul says in the first two verses. Galatians 6, 1 to 2. Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. But watch yourselves, or you may also be tempted. Carry each other's burdens. In this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ. Paul begins by saying that you must watch yourself. You must watch yourself because you might be tempted when it comes to helping someone bear their burden. This is why freedom is a choice. Because at the very beginning, Paul says, watch out, because temptation lurks around the corner. We have been given freedom by Christ, yes, and so we no longer need to worry about sin in our life, but there are still patterns of sin within our life that might be pulled out throughout different parts of helping someone bear their burden. Although we have the freedom of the bondage of sin, we still have to be careful because we still live in a very sinful world. And we can experience these roadblocks that send us back hurtling towards sin. And so this is what Paul is saying. Be careful. Watch out. Paul isn't denying that, people shouldn't help others, but he's rather just saying, be careful. Because even if you stretch yourself to the furthest limit, you're still susceptible to sin. Even if you reserve yourself to one piece of holding someone's burden, you still set yourself out for being tempted. So Paul says, watch out. Watch out. We each know what makes ourselves stumble. And Paul says, hey, you know this. You know the stumblings of sin. And so the first piece, he's actually inviting us to take care of ourselves. Because when it comes to my relationship with Jesus, that comes first. My relationship with Jesus is always going to come first. And Paul wants every single person to know this. Before you go and help someone else, you have to help yourself. The blind cannot lead the blind. The broken cannot restore the broken. Paul knows this. And so he invites us in to say, take care of your relationship with Jesus first. If you believe that you're going to be tempted in helping someone bear their burdens, then watch out. In all you do, your relationship comes first. That relationship with Jesus. That is why Kids Venture teachers, we ask that you follow Jesus. Youth leaders, we ask that you follow Jesus first. In small groups, we ask that you follow Jesus first. Why? Because who can lead someone to Jesus if they don't already know and have a personal relationship with Jesus? We need to know that our relationship comes first, even before we need to help someone out of a pit. But let's continue, though, because that just speaks to our freedom, right? We have the freedom to say, hey, my relationship comes first, but it speaks nothing towards responsibility yet. Because our responsibility, and what I said earlier, is compassion. It comes as such as we know what it's like. We know what it's like. And this is where the tension fights in. Because yes, we have the opportunity to say no, but we know what it's like. We've been through life. We've all experienced burdens or sin or loss. We all know that life can be painful. And so when it comes to responsibility, it is compassion. Our compassionate nature actually goes and wants to help others because we know that life hurts and there's not good parts about it. We don't want others to experience that pain. And this is a very easy psychological idea that when we see others experience pain, we want to assist them because we don't want them to feel that burden. But as Paul says, when we do this, we also fulfill our obligation to the law of Christ. As Christ has called out to us, the second greatest commandment, love thy neighbor as thyself. And we can think, there was so many places I could have gone with this message today. We could have gone to the Good Samaritan, right? The Good Samaritan who the other two pass through, and finally the Good Samaritan says, no, I'm going to stop by the road, help this person that I have no obligation to help out, and I'm going to restore him back to health. It's because our responsibility is both to the law of Christ, but also it's because we're compassionate. And at the end of the day, we are called to carry burdens. That is what we're called to do. As Christians, we love. And they will know we're Christians by our love. And so we are called to carry burdens. And I want to invite you, you see where I put the church is called to carry burdens? I want you just to even put, that's me right above the church. Because that is you. You are called to carry burdens. Every single Christian is called to do this. It's a piece that sets us apart from the world, that we would actually go out of our way. And it's our responsibility to do this. In our compassionate nature and that responsibility of being a compassionate person, it is our calling to bear each other's burdens. In our nature, it's what makes us Christians. We support each other. As they walk through life, some of us will get hurt, and we are there to help and comfort and guide and lead those around us. And so the tension builds because, this is our calling. We are compassionate people. At the very heart of it, it is our responsibility to be compassionate. But at the other hand, sometimes it's just too much, and we do have the freedom to say no. And I'm saying, if there's something on your mind, that you're pulling, and you're like, man, Liam's going to give me some really good advice if I should say yes or no to helping out that person, I'm actually not going to give you any solution here. I'm actually going to say, wrestle with this. The whole point of the sermon is you should really wrestle with these two things before you say, yes, I'm going to bear your burden, or no, I'm going to bear your burden, or I'm not going to bear your burden. Because when we do these things, it sets us apart as a Christian, but as Paul puts, it tempts us. It tempts us. And I want to continue going on because Paul has more to say about this matter. In verse 3, he says this, if anyone thinks they are something when they are not, they deceive themselves. Each one should test their own actions. And when they can take pride in themselves alone, without comparing themselves to anyone else, for no one should carry their own load. Nevertheless, the one who receives instruction in the word should share all good things with their instructor. For this matter, Paul encourages those who have too much to take on to check themselves out, right? He talks about the pride. They can have pride in themselves alone. They can't compare themselves to anyone else. For this matter, Paul, again, he invites us back and he says, how can the blind lead the blind? If we're not ready to bear that person's burden, then we will be tempted. If I'm not prepared for what I'm walking into and helping someone else out through life, then I will be tempted in myself. I will receive temptation because I am putting myself out on a limb where it is very easy to attack me. To explain this, I want to get a little more personal with you. At Camp Bellevue this year, there's a moment that I want to tell you about. I was playing our last campfire worship set for the week, and it's a big night. Like we play double the amount of songs at least. We share a word, and then we invite the teens to kind of share what their favorite part of camp was. You know, what did they learn? Did they make a commitment to Jesus that week? So I'm playing songs in between almost every single piece, and I'm only song 2 in when I'm playing the song called "Every Move I Make," and it goes, "Every move I make in you. You make me move, Jesus." But the chorus is the most lyrically powerful chorus you've ever heard. Na 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 na. And like that, it hits me. I'm singing na 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 to the best of my ability while strumming a guitar, and I get hit with this wave of grief. What in the lyrically powerful na 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 hits me like a wave of grief? I lost my nana this past year in February. And even now, I'm not doing this to grief share, but to show you that I didn't do that song the next morning because I knew that as soon as it hit me, I need to back out a bit. And so I finish the song and I say, hey, I'm sorry for the random pause, because I actually just like full hit a wave. I said, I'm sorry for that random pause. Probably won't happen again tonight, but I told him, I just lost my nana this past year, and I'm sorry about that. I said, we're probably not going to do that song again tomorrow morning. I'm sorry if you really like that song, but I can't do it. And here's the deal. Again, this is not for me to say, hey, I'm just going to grief share with you, but to actually show you, I had to back out a bit because I knew that the temptation to be there was, I can't lead these teens in worship if I'm having to grieve in my own life. I can't lead to the extent that I'm called to. And if it's as easy as saying, hey, I'm not going to play this song at our last chapel the next morning, it's got to be that simple. For my own story, I need to say, I need to carry this grief just a bit longer. And I have full expectation to sing that song next year at camp. Like, I'm not prolonging this. But I'm saying I actually need to work through this in my own life so that I can go back and prepare into this. There's actually more stories that I want to tell, but they were too real still to share with you about how, you have to work through your own burdens before you begin to carry someone else's, because the temptation is there. Satan wants to work when you throw yourself out on a limb and you're not ready to bear that burden for that other person yet. And so that's why it's appropriate for you to sometimes say, I'm not ready to bear that burden yet. I'm really sorry. Because here's the thing. We are responsible for our own burdens first. We're responsible for our own burdens first. And this isn't saying like someone comes up to you and they're like, hey, I need you to carry this with me. And you're just like, no, I've experienced that. It's too real for me right now. I can't help you. And you just say, hey, go away. No, this is actually you saying like, I want to help you, but I'm not the person to do it. But I know like a whole list of people that can. That's why I often lean on our staff at Parkview, because if there's someone who comes up and I say, I'm not actually the best person to do this, but I know like a handful of people that would love to walk alongside you in this. That's why I lean on the church and I say, there are so many people with a whole range of experience that is able to do 1,000 more better works than I am able to do. Let's go ask them, because I know that they are too compassionate and responsible for these pieces. And so when I talk about bearing burden, don't let it lead you into temptation, because sometimes it might be too fresh and you need to bear your own first. But I want to continue because Paul keeps going. And at verse 7, it says this: do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their own flesh from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit from the Spirit will reap eternal life. And let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially those who belong to the family of believers. And so Paul, throughout this whole passage, and as you read it, you can see this tension between freedom, I have my own choice to say, hey, no, I can't bear that burden, and the responsibility to actually help others and bear their burdens. This is Paul coming back to say, yes, bear each other's burdens. And as we've talked about, we have compassion and we follow the law of Christ, which is to be compassionate. And in this piece, Paul says that if we sow compassion, we start to harvest that compassion back. When you live out a compassionate life, you begin to harvest that compassion back from others. Paul's essentially suggesting that when you bear each other's burdens, you begin to reap of that bearing each other's burdens. When you're passionate or compassionate to somebody, and you go through hardship in your own life, you might too receive that compassion back, that someone might actually want to walk side along with you. It's the law of the harvest. Whatever energy we put into the relationship, we receive it out. You know, I have one saying that I usually tell our youth leaders, and I say this, I say, we'll only ever go as deep as you are willing to go. We will only ever go as deep as you are willing to go. And I say that to our leaders because I say, if you're not vulnerable, if you're not open, if you're not willing to be real in life and every single part of it, then what hope do you have to even ask teens to be open and real with their life? And the same goes for any single piece. I bring this often into any atmosphere that I walk with. If I'm real, if I'm intentional, if I'm open to share, then I can expect that people might be open to share, not right away, but I can expect that I will harvest an open community. The same is for carrying burdens. When I am compassionate and I pour out my energy and my time, I hope that people are compassionate back to me when I am needing it. When we show people we deeply care about them, they might not come back and be like, hey, I deeply care about you. But if you continue to share enough burdens with a variety of people, I can almost guarantee that you will harvest compassion back. If you are ready to bear burdens with somebody, there's a good chance that they're ready to bear burdens back with you. And so when we sow compassion, we harvest compassion. And it's very important. We have our freedom to say no, but we also have a responsibility to sow compassion. And again, when we talk about this series, and this is our last day of our series on culture, when we sow these things into our culture here at Parkview, we begin to harvest this back from our culture. And I want to say we already do a really good job with this, and a round of applause to you guys, because I believe that you guys are good at doing this. And that's why I actually wanted to stretch more on the freedom. Don't be afraid to say no sometimes, but I really hope you wrestle with that idea of saying no first. Because saying no to someone who is struggling and has hardship, that should be a hard no to say. It should be a hard yes to say as well, and there's tons of work that comes when it comes to bearing burdens, but even in saying no, that should take some hardship. Every no that I say usually comes with a lot of prayer because I know how valuable it is. Because when we plant seeds of caring and compassion into our culture, we know that we're going to reap them. We're going to harvest them in the end. And so we know when we say no, in our freedom of saying no, because yes, temptation might come if we say yes, and we know that we're going to struggle within it, it should be hard because we know on the other end we have this beautiful harvest of compassion and building that community, and also seeing that person be lifted of burdens. Here's the idea I want to come across with you. You need to sow and harvest all that you do. When it comes to helping and assisting others, you need to sow and harvest. Because here's my final 2 points on how to apply it. When we sow and harvest, we need to understand, first, that we are responsible to care for somebody. We are responsible to care for them. And this should be the first thing that goes through our mind. Someone comes up and says, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Here's some kind of great burden on my life, or here's some kind of sin temptation that I'm stuck in. Your first gut feeling should go, oh, I'm responsible for them. Like they came up to me and they felt trusted enough and trust me enough that they actually came and they shared this with me, and I appreciate that. And so your first gut feeling, you should feel responsible to care for them. But the second thing is, you have the freedom to help them find help. Maybe that is you, and you're saying, yeah, I could take that on. I want to walk through that with you. But you also have the freedom to help them find help. Freedom isn't saying, no, 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 I'm out of here. Like, sorry, that's way too much for me. Freedom is actually saying, that's not me, but I know just the person who can help. And if you don't know the people, like, reach out to our office. Like, we'd love to help. That's what we're all about, is we will help find people that are good in these areas. If you don't know how to help someone through the sin that they're being tempted with, or help them through the pain that they're experiencing in life, find help. Reach out. You know, we all know. I'm speaking to the crowd here. We all know what it's like to carry a burden that is just too much. That's why Paul in this is saying there is freedom to say no, but there is a responsibility to really wrestle and say, I should be doing this. I should be assisting this person. And so we need to have that responsibility to say yes, as long as it doesn't cost us a relationship with Jesus. 2 questions to help you think about this week. First one, who do you need to ask for help? Some of you might be carrying your own burdens, and you might just feel a bit resistant on this question. Who do you need to ask for help? You might be stuck somewhere. Who do you need to ask for help? And the second one, if you're not there, and you're saying, hey, I'm ready to give back, who do you need to show compassion for this week? Who do you need to show compassion for this week? Let me pray. Lord, thank you. You invite us in. You make it hard to wrestle when we say, I just need to step back. But Lord, thank you that you call us to bear each other's burdens. And so I pray that if there's anyone here today who's just wrestling with that idea of, is this burden too much to bear? Do I need to say no? I pray that you just be enlightening them. Holy Spirit, that you're just speaking to them. If it is a temptation in their life where it's just going to be too much, I pray that you just give them the polite, easy answer of no. But Lord, if they are being called by you into the burden of sharing with somebody else, sharing life together, Lord Jesus, I pray that you just be inviting them in even more, inviting them to participate in the community. And so I pray these things in your name. Amen.